G'day. First up, an amusing Carlando Tale with this sign playing a key part. I snapped a picture of that, I put it up on my Instagram page, and it was one of my biggest posts this weekend. Somebody, obviously a Spanish fan, having a gentle dig at, I imagine, a friend in Lando Norris over the English loss at the 2024 Euros in Berlin. So naturally, I think it's Carlos Sainz, his good friend. Then I see some of the comments on the post indicating, go and check out Carlos's manager, his cousin, Carlos Honoro. Before I did that though, on Friday morning I cornered Lando and said, are you going to be retaliating to that? He gave me a wry, no I won't be, and he didn't. So later on Friday afternoon I managed to round up Carlos Honoro and said, look, was that you? And he indeed said, yes, it was me. And we had a bit of a chuckle about it. But later in the afternoon I went down to the driver's car park and Lando's sign was gone. Was it souvenired by someone? Or did F1 just replace it? That I can't tell you, but that Carlando relationship is still alive, and I still have fond memories of some great moments. I remember back to Singapore where both of the two were sitting out being interviewed with these funny poses. Oftentimes on the podium they'll target each other, and often in the press conferences they'll sit and chat to each other when they're not being questioned by journalists. Now an update on the McLaren motorhome. It is still out of action, but they hope to have it ready by Spa. And on another motorhome issue, I'm told that Alpine's new $15 to $20 million motorhome will be up and running for Spa. This is what they have at present, and it has been with them, I believe, for 19 years. This was previously owned and run for Toyota, but they have been promising this new motorhome for some time, but I was quite confident overhearing someone give a tour yesterday saying no, it will be happening in Spa, so we'll know in a week. Let's talk now about Ralph Schumacher and his announcement mid-last week that he was gay. Now, some of you in my post that I put up said, oh, that's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal, and I can tell you why. Ralph had, and let me just check the stats, Ralph had, at the time of recording this, 523,000 likes on his post. And at the time of posting, he only had 230,000 followers. So that's over double the number of followers liking the post. Now, the previous best I've ever had on likes on a post of mine was about 1/3 of my following. So don't doubt that this was a big announcement. And I think he's put on something like 45,000 new followers. And I imagine he would have given some thought as to what that might do for his reputation and for his image. But clearly, it's been an amazing positive for him. And was he surprised by the response that that post got? And he confirmed he was. And a short time ago, I did see him walking past here as I was having dinner at the back of the Kempinski. Have you had a cherry ripe? What is that? Well, it's an Australian chocolate bar and well loved. So yesterday, coming in here, Daniel Ricciardo was making his way, and then a young lady got his attention and offered him a cherry ripe chocolate bar. I captured the moment. It was quite funny. And I did say to him that I gave him one of those in the past, which I had done. Might have given him a few, but yeah, it was quite a funny moment. And still on the subject of sweet treats, come with me over here. This is a local sweet treat that we're allowed to help ourselves to any time during the day, but at the moment Pitt paddock's really not open. So inside here are these little bars which have like a, what is it, like a cream cheese inside there? They're bloody tasty. And I have no doubt that there are a few new fans of this sweet treat because they've got this in the paddock. Now, while this area has no one around at the moment, it was packed on Friday morning because just outside the swipe gates, Brad Pitt was filming a scene for the upcoming Apple F1 movie. A couple of extras would walk in first through the turnstiles, and then Brad would come in clutching his bag, swiping through the gates, and then heading into the paddock as if he was off to work. So over here we had a whole lot of photographers. Well, mock photographers from the movie, and apart from the fact that none of the photographers were using the same sort of kit as any F1 photographer, they were using mainly smaller cameras and perhaps looked more like wedding photographers, they also had brand new shoes on, every single one of them. In fact, a good look at the cast indicated, yes, they all had new shoes. So they did about 8 or 9 takes of that scene. They had fans outside, and it was quite a buzz watching this whole circus go on, because you know that you're going to see it in the movie at some point, and you can say, I was there the day they shot that. And as I mentioned in my last video from the track, this whole structure behind me is going. At the end of this race, they're going to rip it all down and put up a beautiful facility, because I can tell you, the corporate people up there paying $8,000 odd for a seat at this event, well, it's not a seat, it's a spot in a corporate facility, have no air conditioning. And the first 2 days have been around 100 Fahrenheit, 36 Celsius. So come next year, they will be thrilled. Well, it's now Saturday night in the heart of Budapest and it's pumping tonight. So let's go back to what I saw at the track today. Plenty of stories, starting off with Lando Norris securing pole from Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen third. Lando was pretty reserved, I thought, in Parc Ferme afterwards. He could have been jumping around, but of course he knows that the business is done on Sunday. But he did have a laugh or two with his teammate and Max, and then of course he came over to some of his crew and had a little chat with them before heading back to do his interview. They were the happy stories out of qualifying. One of a couple of sad stories was Checo Perez, who was put out in Q1. He came back to pit lane in the back of this car. Not the way you want to finish Q1. And I just can't believe his last 6 qualifying efforts. 16, 16, 8, 8, 19, 16. Coming from such a good start to the season, the poor fella's completely collapsed, and quite frankly, for me it's hard to watch. And how does the medical car know whether to take him to the medical centre or not? Well, all of the cars have sensors in them, so if the crash registers above a certain G-force, it's mandatory for them to go to the medical centre. It didn't in this instance, so he was delivered back to pit lane, and then he came out and did his media commitments in the media pen, and I thought this particular shot here, look, he wasn't devastated, but he clearly wasn't happy. Here's something you probably didn't know. After the session was stopped with about 2 minutes left to go, we were waiting in this holding area to go out to Parc Ferme. And we waited and we waited. Then we were eventually released to go out into Parc Ferme. So we're thinking that the session's been cancelled because there's not enough time for the drivers to get out and do another lap. We're out there for about 2-3 minutes. The cars roll past going back into pit lane. And then a decision was made that we all had to get off the track and go back into that holding area. So I gathered there was some confusion about whether or not the session had actually finished. It hadn't, and we had 2 goes of going out into Parc Ferme. And that doesn't happen very often. In fact, in my 7 seasons, it's never happened. Thankfully today it was much nicer weather, probably about 6 degrees cooler than yesterday and Thursday. And that was because we had a bit of cloud cover leading to some more even light. So pictures like this, which is one of my favourite shots to take, when they come up the hill just about to take turn 4, look absolutely beautiful with these trees behind. And from not too far from where I shot those shots, I took this shot and this shot, sparks, on the exit of turn 4. And have a look at this cameraman here. He's using a very expensive camera that shoots at a very high frame rate and a 500mm lens. So he gets these super slow-mo shots, shooting at many thousandths of a second. I, on the other hand, for this shot, was shooting at a 1/10 of a second, and that's why you can see all those lines. So what you're seeing here is the movement of all those sparks flying out of the back of the car. Now, if you're wondering about wives, girlfriends and family, not too many at all, really. Did spot Mick Schumacher's girlfriend, Leila Hasanovic. Yuki Tsunoda's parents are here, along with Nico Hulkenberg's dad. And of course, Jos Verstappen, who I mentioned earlier. Now, we had a band playing in the paddock today, but it was something a little bit different. It was a traditional Hungarian band, and it was quite an animated performance. Oh, other people of note in the paddock today, Niki Lauda's son, Luca. Now, I've never met Luca before, and I must admit it took a little bit of detective work to work out exactly who he was. But I hark back to, when was it, Montreal, probably 2017 or 18, and I took this most beautiful picture of his father, and it was just a pure fluke that I got this particular shot, and it looks, for all intents and purposes, like it was a portrait. It was not. Speaking of photography, Pierre Gasly took some fan's phone today and took charge of it to do a selfie, because, as often happens, fans get a little bit excited, they get a bit nervous, perhaps they're not adept at taking a photo. So in the end, Pierre just grabbed his phone and said, "Let me do that." Bang, photo done. I'm staying here at the Kempinski, but next door is the Ritz-Carlton, and the crowd tonight was crazy because I drove back. I won't even try and tell you what happened, just have a look. Many hundreds of excited fans, 5, 6, 7 deep, all delirious that George Russell had just arrived back. And this is how he got back from the track to the hotel. I gotta tell you, when you're in a city like this, the police bend over backwards to get the drivers back to where they need to be. And they were moving at speed. I reckon their trip would have been 22 minutes from the circuit to here, whereas normally it's about 32, and today for me it was about 45. And somebody said that they took 2 hours to get back because they were in a corporate car park. I've mentioned before that this is one of my favourite cities to go to an F1 race. I did a video on it the other day. The track itself, yeah, needs a little bit of work, and it's getting some love at the end of this race, as I mentioned. But I'm going to invite you now to do one thing. Yes, could you please click the like button and subscribe? For those of you who have subscribed, don't unsubscribe and then subscribe, because that does nothing. And for a whole lot of extra content, that's where you need to go. Thanks for watching.
And stay passionate.
Viva Español. What is this country?